Hey, welcome to the May 13th Select Board meeting, which the beginning of it will be the public hearing on the warrant articles as well, but first order of business is minutes from April 8th and April 10th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? April 10th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, so we'll move now into the public hearing, and so what we'll do is bring up each of the articles. Anyone that has any questions or comments on those will go up. When you go up and raise your questions, when you do, make sure you identify yourself and try and be as concise as we can so we can move things along as quickly as we can, but not at the sacrifice of getting all the answers out there. And keep in mind, too, that there is a second informational session, which will be on Saturday morning. So there'll be, if you see something in here and that raises some more questions, then you can certainly bring those up at that meeting as well. So, Article 1, it's a piece of cake. That's elect the moderator. You have a question on electing the moderator?
Yeah.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. So if I read Article 1 to elect a moderator by written ballot, I guess my question would be, at the polls,
At the polls.
we're going to elect a moderator.
Yep.
And what's going to be the body that elects the moderator?
Generally, it's the people that are at the poll workers and whatnot there, which is what we've done in the past, and that, because you need to have someone that, is there for the duration of the election.
I understand that. But I guess my question is, if I recall how the open town meeting went, is that basically those citizens assembled would vote for the moderator.
Yes.
And there would be a motion if there was more than one candidate.
Yep.
And then it was secret ballot.
Secret ballot.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because I'm just concerned because the narrative prior to that says the opening narrative is that the polls will open as soon as Article 1 has been acted upon.
Right.
So I would assume that you have to go through that process.
Correct.
But it's really not a representative process. It just happens to be who's there at 7 o'clock.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Then Article 2 is the election of the officers, which will be, the Select Board members, the Budget Finance Committee members, the RSU School Board members. Those are all on the ballot, so those will be voted on through the ballot. Article 3 is the article where we set the dates for the tax bills. So the first half tax bills are October 31st, 25, and the second half tax bills are April 30, 26. That's also where we set the interest rate on unpaid balances, as well as that translates to is if we'll pay, if we pay back, then it's at that same interest rate, and those are based on the maximum rate that the state will allow. Any questions on Article 3? Article 4 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $3,125,416 for general government services. That's administration, assessing, code enforcement, employee benefits, general assistance, insurance, recreation, and technology. Grace?
Levitt Road. Questions that I'm going to ask them because I'm not really sure, although I think I figured it out. So First of all, I wanted to just mention that we don't yet have the annual report. I did ask at town office today. I was told that that will be forthcoming. And the reason I ask that is because I did find last year's annual report, so I was able to go back to last year's figures. There's a lot more information in the annual report, so I'm looking forward to the 2025 being available, which gives more detail. So there is that. But I did go back and compared some of the numbers in Article 4 with last year's numbers. And can you just explain, so that everybody's understanding, myself included, the numbers for most of the items are less, with the exception of rec, and then there's 2 additional ones in this year's, the insurance, work comp, and general assistance. So just what's the difference?
Okay, so what?
Or also employee benefits. Sorry, that one also is not in last year's.
So what happened last year, we had apportioned the insurance to each individual department. So instead, that's been taken out of each individual department and put into the general insurance bucket.
Okay. So the numbers, okay. I kind of figured that. I've followed most of the budget meetings and such this year, but I just wanted to be sure. And also just mention that that annual report is really helpful, so we'll look forward to that. And also, we used to get committee reports in the annual report, and I was told again when I asked that they're also trying to get some of those things back into what we used to get. It didn't even occur to me last year that that was missing, because there was sort of a, I don't know what to call it, but basically you heard from all the different segments of the committees and the boards and whatever, what had transpired over the previous year. So I look forward to us getting back to that being available to folks. Thanks.
Other questions? Moving on to Article 5. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,627,495 for public works. Questions?
David Brown from 91 Tenny Hill Road. I just wanted to ask about the cemetery item, which I think is about the same as what last year's line item was.
Mm-hmm.
And wanted to ask about the North Raymond Road Cemetery, which has that has a white wooden fence that's been in pretty poor repair and lack of paint for the last few years, and just wondered if there's a plan to spend some of the money on that this year.
Joe, do you know?
No, Nate said Nate's got his hand up.
Nate?
Yes, there is a, excuse me, there is a plan to repair the fence this summer. We were gonna paint it last year, but a good portion of it is rotted. So we put it off till this summer, but that is the plan, is this summer to repair that. We did some tree work over there last month to open up to the new section. That answers your question.
Other questions on Public Works? Article 6, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,445,000, $1,445,806 for public safety. Questions? Seeing none. Article 7. To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to dispose of town-owned personal property with a value not to exceed $75,000. Questions? Article 8. To see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to appropriate from undesignated fund balances surplus to meet the unanticipated needs of the community that occur during the fiscal year, and/or adjust the tax rate as the select board deems advisable for an amount not to exceed $75,000.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. So in Article 8, the $75,000 is what would be available as a ceiling for the use of the undesignated fund balance, surplus, unassigned fund, however you want to describe it. Could you just tell me, currently, what is the total that's in our unassigned fund balance?
Okay, let me just clarify one thing there. 'Cause this article, this is the emergency fund. This is when a heating unit blows up or whatever, the select board has an authorization of up to $75,000 to spend on that. That money, whatever is unused, goes back into
Correct.
surplus at
Yep.
the end of the year. It does not carry forward. But that's that emergency fund, which in the past we used that when we had to replace some of the heating units on the top of on the fire station. We also used that in the past when we had to do repowering on Marine One. But that just what that fund there does is gives the select board some emergency money to be able to react quickly to something like that. And then in the past, I don't believe we used any of it this year. The year before, we used some on the units on top of the fire station. Prior to that, it was the powering that. So it doesn't get used very often, but it gives the ability to react quickly in a case like that. If we were going to exceed that, then it would have to come back to a special town meeting or whatever to be any additional or difference authorized that way.
Sure, and I appreciate that, and I think we would be foolish not to have something like that for an emergency and have it immediately available. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I read Article 8, though, it says that the $75,000 from undesignated fund balance is for unanticipated community needs and/or adjust tax rate. Am I correct in that?
It could be used for that if it had to.
Sure. Okay.
That more typically would get picked up under Article 11, though.
And yes, and I'll be talking about Article 11. But I guess basically, for right now, what I'd just like to is the answer to my original question, which is, what is the balance in our undesignated fund as of today? Can anyone there tell me what it is?
Is Brenda on?
Brenda's not on today, no. I can find that out.
I know, I know that we're in excess of the 15% that we've said we need to maintain for undesignated. And
That's according to GAAP. And,
and the bonding agency.
Sure.
They like us to have that.
Sure. Yeah, 5 to 15%, I believe, is what Moody uses for evaluation.
Yeah, we've tried to stay closer to the 15 because that gave us the preferential on the AAA rating.
Sure. Thank you.
Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. So just quickly, to adjust the tax rate as the select board deems advisable, and you referenced Article 11, so you're talking about reducing it lower, or you can adjust it higher as you seem advisable as long as you don't exceed $75,000?
No, the 75, anything that's used there would be used to lower. We wouldn't put money in to raise the tax rate.
Okay, no, I just wasn't clear on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on the emergency fund? Article 9, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to transfer funds between appropriation accounts as long as the grand total of all appropriations is not exceeded. Any such transfers to be approved only at a properly called public meeting of the select board.
Brian Walker, 12 Rolfe Road. I wanted to just make sure, I have a two-part question. Is this a new referendum? Is this a new?
No.
It's been in. Okay.
Yeah.
It was going to be, so if we take Articles 4, 5, and 6, add them together, we get to about $6,198,000. Is that the appropriation accounts that you're referring to here that you can move between?
what this allows is, yeah, I mean, partially, yes, you got all your allocations, but if we are overspent in one account at the end of the year from an accounting standpoint, and if we are underspent in another, we can make that shift so that the books balance.
Right.
If
As long as
we-
it doesn't exceed the total.
As long as it doesn't exceed the total budget. So in other words, say Public Works underspent their budget, but Public Safety went over theirs.
Right.
We can do a shift there so that we can balance the books without having to go back out for additional revenues.
Okay, great. And then, I guess it is a three-part question. Is there a public notification of that change, or is there?
Yeah, because that would have to be, that would be done at a select board meeting.
Great.
Typically, where that gets done is at the last, when you're closing the books, because that's where you're going to see if you had to make any moves.
Great, thank you.
If I could add a little thing. I think, Brian, when you asked that question, I was thinking about individual departments can also move them between their own during the year if one was expended, so that you had that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what we always did. So you have that two-way movement, one in the department and at the end of the year, one for the town.
Yeah, it brings up one other real quick question. So if within, let's just say, public safety, there's a need to move monies around within that, as long as they don't exceed their appropriation, they can do that. And that can be done probably without select board involvement?
Typically, if they're moving that, they're discussing it in a select board meeting that,
Okay.
we're overspending this, so we're going to cut this.
Right.
We're going to cut this.
Got it.
Because then it's always the question of, okay, well, if we cut that, are we hurting ourselves? And so is there another avenue that we should look at?
So then that could be where you have a movement between, great, thank you.
Other questions on Article 9? Article 10 is to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to allow town staff to make applications and execute any documents related to a grant, accept or reject grants, donations, or other gifts of money to the town of Raymond, and authorize the expenditure of monies awarded, donated, or gifted for the purposes specified in the grant, donation, and/or gift. Questions on what that is and how it works? Okay. Next on Article 11, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to appropriate from undesignated fund balance surplus to reduce the property tax commitment as the select board deems advisable in an amount not to exceed $700,000. Peter?
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. In order to try and get that answer to my first question, and I believe I kind of got it, that we've got enough money to cover it. My question on Article 11 is that it's $700,000 from undesignated fund balance for reduction of property tax commitment, period.
Right.
So that's not going to buy us a fire truck. That's not going to put new heaters into place. That's to decrease our tax commitment.
That's the, yeah. Well,
So my question would be, and I don't know if it's answerable because I don't know the exact number that we have in undesignated fund balance, but if the maximums that were appropriated out of Article 8 and out of Article 11 were spent, and I know that's probably highly unlikely, would we then have enough money to cover 2 months' worth of operating expenses for the town, including debt service and including all expenses? That would be in compliance with GAAP. That would be in compliance with GFOA, and generally, that would still maintain us, I believe, a bond rating of at least a AA. It could, if in fact we've got enough money Because my understanding, in trying to educate myself on undesignated fund balances, is that you're probably more aware of this than most anybody in the room, would be that there's models now that are being proposed that are more modeled after insurance, in order to have your undesignated fund balance be in a safe situation. More risk management involved, more involvement in keeping that number up because of the unknowns we're dealing with today, such as extreme weather situations or maybe an unstable economy, or at least rumors of an unstable economy. And therefore, that was my goal in number 8 and number 11, to just be assured, even though I don't have an actual number, that given these two articles, if you were to spend, if the select board was to decide we're going to take $775,000 of undesignated fund balance in order to lower the tax rate in the town, would that still put us in good accounting order?
I mean, the answer to that is yes. But in the, this gives the authority to go up to 700,000. Last year we used 350.
Yeah, I understand. I guess I'm looking at the articles and just asking the question.
Yeah. If I might, Mr. Chair. If Joe pulls up the annual report that we had, the audit report that just came in, at the end of it, I believe it said what we had for surplus, and it would be available and answer 2 questions at once.
I have it right here.
You have it right there? They give the percentage in the report of what we should be at, and that we had more than what we should be at.
Correct. That's usually included in the report, is the audit.
And I'm not saying to stop now, we can move forward, but come back to it, because the questions have been asked, and we'll have the answer when somebody finds it.
I have it right here. It's just going to take me a second. It's not short.
Yeah, it's 30 pages or 40 pages, so.
While you're looking that up, Article 12 is to see if the town,
Can I just add a comment to that?
you may, if you go up there. If you go up there. Nothing from the gallery.
Hi, it's Jody Carroll, 30 Rockwood Acres. Wasn't that 700,000 put up because of the settlement that the town was receiving? If I remember back, it was bumped up this year to accommodate a potential the payout for that settlement. And the discussion, I thought at the time, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, was the reason it was so high. There was a lot of discussion amongst your team because you would want to use some of that to potentially reduce taxation. Not necessarily that you would, so that you didn't alter taxation rates in the future potentially for budgeting for next year, but that would be on the table as an option. Am I remembering that wrong?
Well, what's coming into play there is, of course, because that money, when that money came in, that brought our reserves. It actually backfilled what we had been spending all along on that whole legal action. So it essentially brought us back to whole plus some. So that gave a little bit more flexibility there, but under absent dire circumstances, you wouldn't want to use that full 700, but you want the authorization there in case something blows up on you, that you've got that without having to go through a whole lot of other hoops and things. As I say, what we used last year was 350 of it.
Right, and that limit was probably going to be temporary and potentially retained for future litigation services if something like this happened in the future. And I'm not sure if everybody remembers that, but I'm pretty sure that was a point of discussion as to why it was bumped up so high at the time, and that's helpful.
Okay, so Article 12 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate $511,177 from the tax increment pipeline, Route 302, the TIF, for projects proposed in the TIF district for 2026.
Brian Walker, 12 Rolfe Road. On Route 302 maintenance, I'm assuming that's not maintenance of the road itself since it's a state highway. So what exactly does it cover?
The 302 was the decorative lights and all that were put in. That was part of when the TIF was originally set up.
Okay.
So it picks up the maintenance on those, plus some of the maintenance on the sidewalks and things like that.
And the
But not 302 itself.
Okay, and the street light fixtures for the 36.5, that would be new fixture
It's
or
it
repair
picks,
of?
it's repair of.
Okay.
You gotta remember those are now
Yeah,
15 years old.
okay. And then the paving and roads component, the 50,000, what would that be doing?
That because there is some in the TIF document, there was some paving that was allowed in there. So what we tried to do in the TIF is put things in there, because the biggest thing is when you reach the end of the TIF, anything that's unspent you have to give back.
Okay.
So
You're
it's one of
exhausting
the
that TIF out.
so anything that we could put in there, and there was allowance, and similarly why there was some public safety equipment in there, because there was some designations in there that was allowed in there. We also did a modification on that this year to allow the fiber optic upgrade to get picked up under there.
So I think I've been in town for 25 years, and I think there's always been a TIF.
Yeah.
Are we at the point of exhaustion of the TIF fairly soon, or does there continue to be a rollover on it? Or
We've got another 3 or 4 years left on there. So part of the planning downstream is to relook at that, which would have to end up creating a new TIF zone and applying to the state and all that.
Thank you.
So the unassigned for that as of June 30th, 2024 is the
Right.
number that we have here, and that's 2.589, $2,589,284.
But what we'll do is
But that's of June of that's almost a year.
what we can do is we can check with Brenda. She can run
Yeah, we'll get
run
the
the
actual.
figures, and we'll have those for the Saturday meeting.
But it gives them a good idea, there's plenty.
Yeah.
Other questions on the TIF? Article 13, to see if the town will vote to appropriate from the Tasseltop Park Enterprise Zone Fund an amount of $144,500 for the administration and activities at the park, and to allocate all revenues generated by the park operations to be recorded and retained in the Tasseltop Park Enterprise Zone. Questions on that, Peter? Tag teaming. Joe, I'll let you answer that
Okay.
question.
My Parks and Rec hat on.
So my questions, it's actually on the next one as well, but I don't know if you can combine answers to them. I did go back to last year's annual report comparing the amounts there, and both of these articles, 13 and 14, are higher. 13 was higher by around 23,000, and 14 by quite a bit, 58,000 and change.
Yep.
And just, again, in the annual report, which we'll get, last year's had a breakdown in the warrants as far as it was at the end of the report, but it showed more specifically what that money was for, not just the total amount in the warrant article. And so is there any explanation you can give me for both of those two?
Yeah, these are based off raised funds. So the Tasseltop is enterprise account, and then Article 14, that's a special revenues account. So those are all of our revenues coming in and expensed out for operations. So that's labor, equipment. So the increase for Tasseltop is because we've had now 2 or 3 years of steady data that we've increased our revenues, and we're hitting average around $140,000 to $150,000 in our annual collections there. And then for Article 14, we've increased our services. So with that increase comes more increase in expenses as we
so it's
grow
an
summer
expansion
camp.
of the
Right.
programs. I
But-
know you've
Yeah.
got a whole long list of all the different
sure.
programs and such
But
too. So
but
that
keep in mind too that higher number is is a good thing, because that's that's increasing revenue on there, so it's paying for itself from that standpoint. You got additional revenues coming in, which then he can turn into more programs and things like that. So that going up is a healthy thing. If it went down, that's more cause for concern.
So I'm going to go ahead and ask a question I think that maybe you were going to ask, but maybe not. If I'm asking wrong, you're next. So basically, is Tasseltop, and for that matter, is Park and Recreation, are they self-funding themselves from the fees that people pay for the using the programs and the?
In select areas, yes. For full-time staff, it's coming out of the general fund operational. So that's assistant director and Parks and Rec director. It's Riley and I. But as far as the part-time seasonal staff, everyone they see that's working summer camp or at Tasseltop, yes, has raised from these funds and paid out and expensed through there.
So that portion of it,
That's
the
separate.
town is still
Yeah, but yeah, our
part of the cost of the overall program for those positions.
correct. Our operational expenses, that includes other the porta potties at the parks, things like that. That's in our operational. That's that $292,000. I can't remember which article is, but in the beginning there. So that's our operational cost. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I didn't answer the question.
Peter? You didn't fully read his mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, she did kind of. The way I'd phrase it was this: since my understanding of enterprise funds are such that actually those are revenues, therefore, in other words, the town pays the total, and then the town gets reimbursed through the enterprise fund, through fees.
No. So it operates as a business account. So when we bring, say, all of our membership fees for Tasseltop Park, that goes into the revenue account, and then we expense our staff or projects out of that same fund. So Tasseltop. So when we're
But the enterprise fund it's a revenue account, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it's a revenue account. Who pays it? The town?
The people that are using the service.
Okay, so it's paid through fees.
Correct.
And
Fees,
my
any type of,
understanding is that generally speaking, when it's an enterprise account, it's usually 50% or more of the operating is generated by revenues. And I guess my question, and I think what Grace was kind of asking is, and this would go for the following article, we're not breaking even. It's costing us money for these services. It would be naive to think it wasn't costing us things for those services. But I'm just curious, what's the ratio? What's the point of revenue from an enterprise covering the total cost of our rec programs in Tasseltop?
As far as the programs, I don't have a general knowledge of an amount allocated to that. But say for basketball, we have our program budgets that are, obviously whatever's coming in for revenue is expensed, and we're not going over those program budgets.
Sure.
So individualized, yes, it's to equate the operational side of this into this equation.
Yeah.
That will require a lot of detail.
Yeah, but very basically, just, I guess for myself as a taxpayer, I'd just kind of like to know how much is our rec program in Tasseltop costing the taxpayer of Raymond? And I do know that some of it is offset by these enterprise accounts. If we were providing it all, it'd be quite a bit more expensive.
I guess I'm not understanding.
I guess what I'm just trying to get to is, what does it cost us, the taxpayer, to run the rec program in Tasseltop?
So you would like to see
fees and enterprise funds and the like.
So you like to see like per time unit of our salary equated to time operating these.
Well, salary and all other expenses
so
that are not covered by an enterprise fund.
Peter, I asked for this information in the second or third month I was here, and at the time, we really didn't have a breakout of many things, to be blunt, and she told me to check with the chair, and I said, no, I'll wait for you to find the answer, and I think to be simple here, I'm just trying to get to the end of this.
Sure.
I think by the time we have the next meeting, what he's asking, what I asked months ago, is how much of a percentage, because you're allowed to keep the revenues also in your accounts that you generate, but there
don't
isn't,
leave it.
there isn't really a lot. But your percentage of salary, I didn't realize your assistant was going to be part of Tasselhoff either, so that was new to me tonight. I think you just said you and,
No.
Okay.
I'm trying, no. So-
okay, that's what I heard. That's why I'm asking.
No, it's multi-funds here. So we have 3 different funds. If you're talking about the operational, the general fund, which is included is my salary as Parks and Rec Director and Riley as Assistant Parks and Rec Director. That's not directly in a enterprise or the special revenue account for programs, right?
Right.
So if you're trying to do a one-on-one with our time versus what is being allocated, your
Yeah.
elected.
I'm not looking for hourly, I'm just saying a
That's-
percentage. What time?
Yeah. So I mean, our salaries are,
Yeah, so
Commingled.
you can kind of like, I guess, equate it that way. But in our operational, there's also other accounts that have no effect in our enterprise or special revenue.
That's what
Sure.
the sheet was.
Yeah.
So Joe,
So-
Joe already,
breakdown.
Joe broke this down in one of our budget finance meetings where it had, which all of those were, Tasseltop, it was broken down into each 3 and then where the revenues went. That's in there too.
Yeah.
I
have
will
a-
tell you,
I didn't bring that part
I
with
still got the podium, so I guess what I just say is that I guess what I'm really asking for, Joe, is this, and this is just personal.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you would survey the community to see if there's a perception out there. The perception that I have felt, and through my own personal feeling, is that our rec program is making money. Now, that's true. And that's where we get into communication and what these meetings are all about. You do make money in rec, but
We
you
generate,
also
yeah.
have expenses,
Of course, yeah.
and those are paid by the taxpayer. So the perception,
Not all, no. A lot of our, if you're paying for a basketball program or summer camp, those expenses are paid out of the revenues.
I
people are
understand.
buying
So
in.
getting back to the root of my question, what I was basically just asking is, what is the ballpark ratio between what the taxpayer is paying for and what is paid for through fees,
Yeah.
through the rec programs and through Tasseltop? That's all I was asking.
No, it's a good question.
And the
Majority
the
are
answer,
salary.
The answer is
Yeah.
really the crux of this is the perception is, and I hear this from people. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. The rec program in Raymond is making money, and that's true, but it's also not the right perception.
Right. We're covering to run those services, right?
Personally, I don't think it's a lot. I looked at all your figures, and I don't think the
It's- no, it-
administrative cost is that much. It's just that it was commingled, and they didn't have an answer. And I think it puts you really on a bad spot right here to say, what do you think it is? Because
Yeah, you have
if it's
to-
10% of his salary, it's minor for the kind of supervision that the town now gets there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's tough to equate 60, yeah. And Peter, sorry if I'm not, but 65, like, we run 65 programs. You'd kind of have to equate our time to those, programs when there's so many moving parts to it. Riley right now is running futsal. That's not a cost per se in the program fees because it's in our operational, so Riley's time is running those programs. So to come up with a figure, it might be like, $2 per program for us running those pieces that the taxpayers cost. So it kind of gets, into the operational side of things. But that could be, if we contracted those services out, like say someone ran basketball, then that would increase our program fee because it's not you guys paying us to run it. So that's kind of the best explanation I could do right now.
And I think you have a legitimate question. I asked this, I heard that they're running at a profit, that they were doing really well at Tasseltop. So I asked, what is the breakout administratively so I would know what the profit is? And that's all I asked. So it's legitimate.
Other questions on 13 or 14? Article 15, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $578,840 for debt service.
Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. So I just have a quick question. So it says 2023 Tasseltop Snack Shack and Public Works Garage Design. Didn't we already pay for a Public Works Garage Design, like when we went through this last year?
We took a bond out, so this is the debt
Payment
service
for
on
it.
the bond that we took out.
This is just paying back what we already
Okay,
voted on.
gotcha.
It's from 2023.
Okay,
This
gotcha.
is just the debt service. So this
Gotcha.
is the-
I think it's 5 years.
Yeah, no, long day.
Let's see, Article 16, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $203,701 for the Raymond Village Library. Questions there? Article 17, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $415,000 and move from abandoned or completed projects that have been carried forward in the CIP, $135,623 for a total of $550,623 for the capital improvement program. Questions there? Article 18, to see whether the town will vote to carry forward any existing fund balances in the capital improvements program and the healthcare reimbursement HRA account and the employees' compensation account. Questions there? Article 19, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $67,500 for the RTP micro van service. Grace?
So,
No, that isn't there.
Grace Levitt, Levitt Road.
You won't do it until after the...
I've said this at a public comment, or maybe it was at one of your agenda items at the select board meeting, I can't recall which, but as I understand it from watching a previous meeting, this is basically the town subsidizing, for lack of a better word, sort of a taxi service. It's a micro van, I realize, not just a car, so that people in town would pay a set amount, I think it was $3, to go basically anywhere in Raymond or to Wyndham, some shorter distance. If this were an in-person town meeting, you'll be hearing that going forward forevermore, I think. But wouldn't we be able to say, okay, that amount is set, so we can't raise it? But could we say, no, 12,000 of that 67,000 should go to our share, Raymond's share, of the Lake Region transport, the bus that goes from Bridgeton to Portland? Because I really feel it's very unjust that we are not paying into that service. And when it was brought up before, as far as this microvan service, it was, well, you can get that service from your home to the Wyndham Lake Region bus stop to get into Portland, because this service wouldn't take me into Portland. But that really is not feeling right, that, okay, I'll pay to get from my house to Wyndham, and then I'll pay the fee from Wyndham into Portland, but it's the Wyndham folks that are paying their share of that bus service to begin with, or the Casco, or the Bridgeton, and the Naples. So again, I really feel that Raymond should be paying that $12,000, whatever the current rate is, as our portion of that bus route. It just doesn't feel right that we're spending this kind of money for sort of an individual type of service, which I understand is needed. And I've heard of an incredible volunteer and volunteers that are right now providing some of that transportation for folks that need it. And I don't mean to diminish the great service that they've been providing voluntarily. That shouldn't really be happening, but it's awfully nice of them that it has. So it's not that I'm opposed to having this service in town, but I am really upset that we're not paying our share and haven't been for some time of that. I'm not sure if we really know how many people will actually use this, but it's me helping to pay for this to subsidize something for others. That's fine, that's how it works. But we're not paying for that service from Bridgeton to Portland, and we really should be paying our share. That's just real comment more than a question.
So when we had the discussion with RTP, the RT people said, if you do this, you don't need that. You don't need the 12,000. So he's saying this is better for you, and they have no problem with us than either bringing people to Casco or to Wyndham to get on the bus. So that's directly from RTP. So it's not, they're saying this is better suited for the way Raymond is, and he did not have a problem with us in that, if we do this, in not doing the 12,000.
Well, I do wonder if Bridgeton, Naples, Casco, and Wyndham might have a problem with us not paying the bus. And if I'm not using this to get to the bus stop in Wyndham or Casco to get into Portland, I'm getting myself to that bus stop. That's further than going to a bus stop that used to be in Raymond. So it's having that impact potentially. And again, it just doesn't feel right. So,
well, I mean,
Yep.
they could, the other towns could go into a higher expense mode and do a similar thing there too. But as I say, the RTP people, he said in the meeting here, he says, if you do this, you don't need to do the other. He said,
They own both, right?
Because they're
It's the same
both
company.
owned. It's still owned by. So you're putting funds into the RTP system.
I understand that, but it still isn't seeming to be the right way. It seems like we can do this, but we should also be doing the other as well, so that there would be a stop in Raymond. Because there won't be a stop in Raymond with this.
Nope.
I don't know if I think that if the company that's providing it came up with the idea, I don't think they have the issue with it, because it's not like we came up with it. He was
How
like,
did they come up with the idea?
He told us that you could take this service from Raymond and go to the bus stop to get to Portland, and they own, RTP owns both of those, the van and that.
They came up with that idea, but they didn't come up with, hey, Raymond, do you want this?
No, but they told us, if we get this, you're more than welcome to do this with it. And I think if it wasn't.
It was
I can
more-
do that now. I can drive from my home to a Wyndham stop now and get the bus. Nobody's checking my place of residence, I don't believe, and saying, oh, you live in Raymond, you can't take this bus from Wyndham into Portland. But again, I'm having to go a little bit further in order to do that. It's not really to debate back and forth. I just wanted to express that.
And I have a broader question. The question was asked if they could have done it at a public meeting, and it's important for me to know going forward because I've still got a couple of years left here. Can they take a warrant that has a contract attached to it in the future and say we would prefer to lower that down and have another warrant? Because that's the only way you could do it, with people not present.
You can't add a warrant at the town.
And I think that's what you'd have to do.
You can lower an amount on it, but you cannot raise amount, and you cannot add.
And it would be a different warrant for the bus is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But could you, if it were in person, say, there's the amount, but we want a portion of that to go towards the bus service and have a stop?
Then you wouldn't be properly funded for that service. You'd be you wouldn't be funding the service. So then you'd end up shorting yourself there.
Okay. All right.
But as I said,
Thank you.
in the discussions that we had with RTP, that was their recommendation. So.
811 211 Road. Okay, so first, congratulations to Grace. I believe during that whole conversation, she didn't use the word equity once. That was very good. Secondly, what I'm really getting at here is more process. Okay, because that's been the problem for a while that's plagued our town. So I guess my question would be this, or just to state a fact. The presentation by RTP took place at a select board meeting on March 18th. At that same meeting, what you guys did was put the minivan $76,500 proposal on the warrant. One of my first questions is, how did you have that on the warrant before you even heard the presentation? So I'm a little confused there, but I'm not trying to create waves. But I guess my other question would be this. There seems to be a pattern of deadlines, and I believe when we get into the regular meeting, we're going to be talking about deadlines again on other issues. But my understanding is that this was proposed on March 18th and voted onto the warrant on March 18th, and I guess my question was, although I would absolutely support increasing public transportation or a public-private or a private transportation, any transportation in the town, because for several years we've had none. And to Grace's point, were we to take our time with this, where there had been a little bit more sunlight thrown on this process as far as what does the contract really mean, then what would that, my understanding in business is that what's that word when you're talking about pricing and contracts and a vendor? Oh, it's negotiations. So how about a negotiation where what you say is, we want this service, this mini van line, but what we want is we want you to tailor it in with the fact that we'll also be on your bus line. Well, I don't know if we can do it. Well, we'll give you $5,000 more than the $67,500. Well, maybe I could do that. But I wouldn't recommend you do that if it's not going to really sweeten my pot at all. So that's negotiations. That's what you do. It takes time. You individuals all have a background in business. You know about that. What was the need to get this at this point in time when I've heard for at least 5 years the select board saying the reason that we're not going to pay that premium to Western Main Transportation or whatever you want to call them is because the ridership is low and we have to pay the same fee as someone from Westbrook, and that's not fair. So that's our reasoning why we're not going to fund this. And I'll tell you right now, you don't have a clue, or the town doesn't have a clue, what ridership is going to be with this plan. And I don't know. Maybe you know because you guys had conversations with them, although I don't know that they were contractual discussions, about saying, well, is this going to be prorated? If after the 3 months we've had 3 people use this service, are you going to prorate that $76,500 to 3 months of service? Do we have that assurance?
We did. Yeah, we asked them during that.
It would be great to, I'm not saying I like to stay up at night and read contracts, but I think that there was a little bit more information that the taxpayer needed to have about this before you go forward with it.
We had that discussion because that was one of my problems with it, is that it's a big number to have for a full 1 year service. And if we find out that there's 3 people riding it after month, 1, 2, or I said 3 or 4 months just because in the first month maybe people don't know about it yet and Derek, get some traction.
This wasn't a verbal contract, right? This is on paper.
Well, we have to go back and forth with them and ask their questions before we can decide what we're doing. So our questions to them were that same exact proposal. Like, if we only get 3 or 4 riders after 3 or 4 months, can we now get out of this and stop the service?
For 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
And the answer was yes.
That's good to know, and it's good to know that that's contractual. I'm just asking these questions. I agree with everything that Grace said as far as paying your fair share. I think that the excuses that have been used that got us out of the transportation with the bus in the first place, in my mind, weren't valid. They were used because there were a couple of people that didn't like how the presentations from Western Main Transportation went or whatever. And I talked to Mr. Kelly's former board member who he happened to leave that office about 6 months ago. So Mr. Kelly is new to the business as far as that position. And I believe, when someone comes in new and they want to impress everybody, what they do is they negotiate. But if someone's not going to negotiate with them, why wouldn't you just say, okay, thank you.
Brian Walker, 12 Rolfe Road. I don't want to belabor this too much, but the logic of having a private vehicle come, and first of all, is there any needs assessment done on this? Any age? Anybody? Could I or could my daughter use it to?
I think it was as long as they're above 16.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So if everybody does what Raymond does, there is no bus service. So that's the first thing. Now you don't have a place for a private vehicle to drive somebody to pick up the bus to go into Portland. So that's the first point that I would make. If every other town does what Raymond does, there will be no bus service. My family uses the bus service probably 15 to 20 times a year. Right now, we are driving to either Casco or Wyndham to either start our trip or my daughter coming from Portland to get off the bus. From an efficiency standpoint, it seems that an allocation to the bus, if we're going to do this, and I understand what they said, and I don't know what their mindset is when they did this, it makes no sense to not take, to me, a small portion of $67,500 and allocate it to the bus and be a community member, a member of the Lakes region, and do our part towards something that if everybody else didn't do it, there would be no bus service. And then it all comes tumbling down, because if you're trying to get to Portland for a doctor's appointment, if you're trying to get to Portland because you're visiting, it suddenly doesn't work, because then there's not the mass transit. I don't believe this service would allow you to travel in a private car all the way to Portland, correct?
It would not.
Okay. So I would really urge on the bus. I do think that there is usage of it. And anyway, that's enough.
I think personally, again, this is the first time the public's talked on this level, and I would say that the fact that 5 of us didn't think of the idea of saying, could we put 15 or 12 towards the bus service, is on us. It didn't occur to me. I was with Derek thinking, what if it doesn't work? We have $67,000 invested, and at that time I'm thinking, well, we could always use that for the bus instead of canceling. However, that said, there's a bit of time between now and then. We certainly have a town manager that could call up and say there was an issue raised, and if it's not too late before the next meeting in the vote, it would make it more appealing and probably a stronger vote if we could shift some of the funds into the bus. It would also save you money and gas going to Wyndham 2 or 3 times a day if you don't line them all up, because the goal was to line up common riders at the same time. And I don't think there's anything wrong unless perhaps it's going to change the warrant, which is why I raised the question now before the next meeting.
What I would say is, no, you keep the article as it is, and you have discussions with them. Say, listen, we're giving we're doing this. Will you now stop in Raymond too? That's a pickup point. Because if you look at it, he's developed this figure.
Yes.
Of something, and so.
I like that.
He can do some manipulations internally to say, okay, they're giving us $67,000. We'll stop there. And
I like the compromise.
Well, you know what we can do to negotiate this is to tell him that with this 67.5 that we're giving him, and if they do stop in Raymond, that more people will use this, because right now it's on a trial basis, and if we use it for 3 months and the turnout's not great, then we're not going to renew.
That's a good point.
If you do stop in Raymond and we use this service and then the numbers are up and high, next year we're going to renew this service and keep going with it. If not, it might fall out and they don't get any money. So it might be beneficial to them to take on stopping in Raymond, because it'll bring their numbers up and it'll keep it on the books longer.
2 good points.
And I wouldn't disagree with any of that, to be quite honest with you. The sense I got, if my memory serving me, as far as the presentation by Mr. Libby at the Select Board meeting, was that he stated, and correct me if I'm wrong, on that route from Bridgeton to Portland, how many other towns are using the minivan service?
None.
He said there was one, I believe, and it's a demonstration, or it's a 1-year trial.
That may have been Westbrook.
In Wyndham.
It was Wyndham.
And that was it.
Wyndham, yeah.
Not.
Yeah.
Wyndham's doing it
Wyndham has their own. That's
Wyndham
right.
has their own.
So I would think that from a business perspective, if this community is successful with it and there's good feedback from it, it's only going to benefit his business.
Well, and they want to expand this to the other towns as well, so.
So why not use Raymond
And
as a
their,
trial?
right, and their excuse was the other bus was working well in another town and they're trying to get it to us. And it makes logical sense to go from the most populated and work its way down and then convince every town on the way down.
Sure, so it's a good business move for them. I would think that that's all what comes out during the negotiation.
Good input.
Other questions on number 19? Okay, Article 20. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $13,250 for provider agencies, $1,500 for Crescent Lake Watershed Association, $750 for Lake Region Chamber of Commerce, $10,000 for the Thomas Pond Dam restoration, and $1,000 to be used at the town manager's discretion.
I'm ready to negotiate these down.
No, but until you can go down.
Any questions on the provider agency side? Article 21. See if the town will vote to appropriate. See if the town will vote to appropriate the total sum of $2,221,180 from estimated non-property tax revenues to reduce the property tax commitment together with all other categories of funds which may be available from the federal government and any other sources. That's our "we'll take your money" article. Article 22. To see if the town will vote to accept certain state funds as provided by the Maine State Legislature during the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025, and other funds provided by any other entity, including but not limited to municipal revenue sharing, local road use assistance, emergency management assistance, snowmobile registration money, homestead exemption, tree growth reimbursement, veterans assistant reimbursement, veterans exemption reimbursement, business equipment tax exemption reimbursement, state grant, or other funds. It just says, if you'll send us money, we'll take it.
Are you sending us money, Rolf?
I don't think there's much to send this year, but. Article 23. To see if the town will vote to authorize the use of town employees and/or town-owned equipment or independent contractors hired by the town for maintenance on private roads in special and certain circumstances wherein in the public interest. This is the one that says if you've got an emergency down a private road and, we have to have Nate plow it, that they can do that, because otherwise we don't plow private roads.
Life safety.
Any questions on that? Article 24. To see if the town will vote to appropriate from undesignated fund balance $642,568 for employee benefits liability. Well, that's not a raise, it's using it because there wasn't some proper accruals done back years ago for unused sick time and unused vacation. It kind of reminds me of, I think it was about 25 years ago when the school went through that when they hadn't allocated for the summer pay, and they ended up having to do a catch-up article like that. So this will be a decreasing value each year.
Pete 11 Road, and I know that that's a little staggering figure there, and I understand, Ralph, what you're saying. It will decrease each year. I dealt with it on the corporate level for a number of years with accruals of sick time, vacation time, holiday, and the like, and I believe the way the accountant described it is it was an unfunded liability. Right. In other words, you're incurring that expense. It could happen at any time, but there's no money designated to pay for it.
Right.
And that's what we've done.
Yep. Correct. Article 26, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to enter into a lease purchase agreement in the amount not to exceed $1,600,000, not including interest or other legal fees, or on such terms as may deem available for the purpose of purchasing a new stock ladder truck, and raise an appropriate amount not to exceed $187,348.08 for payments due in fiscal year 2025. So this is our bonding article for the new fire truck. Questions on that? Article 26, intentionally left blank. I hate that statement. When you have a page that says intentionally left blank, there's something on it. It's not blank.
I think Peter's going to put the bus in there.
Yeah, I have to say something about the blank article. I just ask, just for the sake of information, what was that article?
Oh, I'm trying to remember what it was.
I believe it was a comprehensive plan?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Which will get discussed later on tonight, too.
Correct.
Article 27. Okay, now we're getting into land use ordinance changes and issues there. So Article 27 is Article 4, Section 2B, number of copies, and Article 5, Section 2B, number of copies, and Article 6, Section 2A, number of copies, and Article 7, Section B, number of copies, and of the subdivision ordinance be adopted May 21, 1994, and amended through June 4th, 2019, and Article 10.3A.3B, applications, and Articles 10.4A.3, submission requirements of the land use ordinance as adopted May 21, and amended through June 11, 24, be amended by adding the underscored language and removing the language in the strikeout. And that information, those informations you'll find on this appendix sheet there. So I don't know if you want to just kind of reiterate where those changes came from, but it really came down to the number of copies of things that needed to be supplied to the planning board for reviews, because a whole lot more is being done electronically instead of paper-wise. If I've summed it up correctly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
David Brown from 91 Tenny Hill Road again. As I said before, I do engineering, so I spend a lot of time looking over things like this. And so I had some questions or comments about it. A couple of maybe for the future housekeeping items would be, these days you don't have to put the numbers in parentheses. That's an old-fashioned thing from when you couldn't read things before, I guess. And I know when you do it, you're doing it the normal way, kind of. You're putting small numbers in parentheses most of the time, and we have a 40 in parentheses, which, that's a thing for later. The use of shall, and there's one use of shall that really means must, and most of the shalls mean this and that. And the Supreme Court a few years ago decided that shall doesn't mean what you think it means. So in my engineering work, you say shall, meaning you must do this. And they said, somebody got away, convinced the Supreme Court that, well, it doesn't always mean that. So, I understand that like state laws are full of shall, and I think you want to address how you use it so that it makes more sense. So, like down at the bottom, at the bottom of the addendum page, you've got complete shall be returned to the applicant. Now that's kind of a typical governmental legal thing, but above that you say shall be submitted, and then you mean must. So it's just perhaps that's actually an old thing. It's not a change right now, but just we could work on that a little bit. My main question though was, each one of these is talking about copies, paper copies, PDF copies, electronic copies, and each one of these addendum items, well, there's a wide variation in how those are worded. So you've got some that say 12 paper copies. So the first one says 12 paper copies, including some paper copies and a digital copy. And the way it's punctuated, you would think that the digital was part of the paper copies. Sounds silly, I know, but then the next one down, you say 12 copies, and then it says 12 physical copies and 1 digital copy, and the next one says physical copy and physical copy. another one says copy and physical, then physical, and it just switches back and forth. And if this is the language that's going into an ordinance, that's going to be, that, apparently can't be changed, it's printed here, so that's what it's going to be. It's kind of too bad that, that it gets into this point and you've got all these different formats. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to clean that up before it becomes an ordinance, but I know we've said here before you can't really change something once it's out to vote. So I guess just wanted to bring those things to your attention, that those ought to be cleaned up.
Comment on that, or? So I don't want to put words in his mouth.
I mean, the word shall is in a lot of our ordinances. To go through our ordinances and to reword shall, that shall take a very long time, I would say.
Shall take a lot of time.
I mean, I'm all for trying to clean up the language. I guess I could invite you to come to the planning board ordinance meetings when we're doing that, and we can kind of, parse the words and figure out how to make it as clear and consistent as possible. Outside of that, I mean, we haven't had a subdivision come through in a year, so some of these things, I think people understand. And to your point, I've seen shall, and I've seen it described exactly as you say, as must. So I'm not familiar with the Supreme Court case where they kind of have taken that definition and said, it means must, but not always. So I really can't add any more to that.
But I will say, at the state level, in any of the state laws, if it says shall, that is a mandate. If it says may or anything else, then is recommended but not. But if it says shall, that is that is an absolute, and that's any of this, any of the state laws that are written now. That's the defining thing there, and that's in the definition sections way back in some document someplace back in Augusta.
We follow state law, not government law anyway in Maine, so we don't do feds, just state.
And
11 to Levitt Road, I would assume that all language on ordinances is reviewed by the town attorney.
Correct. Yeah, because he's the one that's going to defend it if it ends up there. So, other questions on 27? Article 28. Shall Article 10.3A 10A, expiration of approval of land use ordinances adopted May 21, 1994, as amended through June 11, 2024, be further amended by adding the underscored language and removing the language in the strikeouts. And this is a administrative clarification on the standards for approvals on extension of permits. Questions on that? Article 29, shall Article 5.5, footnote 3, street design standards of the Town of Raymond Street Ordinance adopted May 18, 2002 and amended through June 2, 2015, be further amended by adding the underscored language and removing the language in strikeout text. And this is a clarification on the reviewing authority. Questions there? Article 30, shall Article 6.3E.3 appeals procedure of the land use ordinances adopted May 21, 1994 and amended through June 11, 2024 be further amended by adding the underscored language and removing the language in the strikeout text as shown in Addendum 5. And this is administrative, aligning appeals notices and the time frames with the state statutes, which we always like to be in sync with the state. Question is Article 31. Shall Article 6.2.B.1, shoreland and road frontage, Article 6.4E, piers, docks, wharfs, bridges, and other structures and uses extending over and below normal high water lines of water bodies within wetlands of the town of Raymond, shoreland zoning as adopted May 21, 1994, and amended through June 11, 2024, be further amended by adding the underscored language and the diagrams and removing the language in the strikeout in Addendum 6. And so this is one that was dealing with, if I'm correct here, it was dealing with the size, the max size things could be and the configurations that they could be on docks.
Yeah, and make sure, just in line with the state laws about docks.
Article,
Question about that.
Yep.
This is, we're on question AC, right? So, make sure I didn't get
Yeah.
that. Okay. This one, I was concerned, I wasn't quite sure that the language was absolutely clear, even though you're working on it. But it says, shall separately meet or exceed the following minimum frontage requirements for both shore and road frontage. And are we sure that the interpretation of that, saying both shore and road frontage, couldn't lead someone to say, oh, item A, residential per dwelling 225 feet, couldn't they go to a court and say, both, I only need 225 feet for both shore and road frontage. I know it says separately above that, but it just didn't strike me as absolutely definitive that somebody couldn't argue that they could actually have a half of that on the shore, or 100-foot road frontage and 125 feet of shore frontage or something.
I think that's why they added separately.
I mean, so I guess what you're saying is, say somebody had, if the minimum lot size would be 225 in the water, 225 on the road is what you need for a lot. They could argue that they have 450 feet, so then they could have two lots. Is that kind of what you're?
I was almost thinking they could argue.
yeah, please. Yeah.
I was kind of thinking they could argue that the 225 was all they had to have, the way it's worded. So I guess has the attorney looked at that and made sure that that's the right way to go?
So I guess what I'd say is, no new lot can be created without 225 feet of frontage on both the water, and any lots that are smaller than that are already grandfathered. So they're able to have a dock, even if you have less than 225. So this is for new lots, and you couldn't create a new lot that had less than 225 feet of frontage on either of them.
Well, I guess I'll have to take your word for it that there are other parts of the land use ordinance that work with this, and they can't just take this piece separately without those others.
Right. Right. So the 225 we're referencing here, it comes straight from the minimum lot standards.
Mhm.
So to have a lot, you need 225 and 225. Any lots that are less than that can't be created. They'll be an illegal lot.
Okay. As long as you feel safe. Don't want you to get in trouble.
I'm just going to stay here.
Yeah, there. Article 32. Shall Article 12.2, terms defined in the land use ordinance as adopted May 21, 1994, and amended through June 11, 2024, be further amended by adding the underscored language and removing the language in the strikeout text as in Addendum 7. So this was clarifying some definitions on solar. So as
So I think
that's been a hot topic over the years, let's make sure everybody understands where it is.
Right. So I think that it was simply to just clarify that, kind of make the distinction between, an at-home or a solar system that's used just to offset your energy costs, and then a system that is grid tied to be for profit. And we just wanted to make sure that the few commercial entities that are not in a commercial zone didn't think because they were a commercial operation that they couldn't have a solar system that just was there to simply offset their costs. Just to kind of clarify that just a little bit. And that was really the crux of the language change there.
Questions on Article 32? Article 33. Shall, Section 3, Administration, Section 6, Compliance, and Section 7, New Construction and Subdivisions of the Town of Raymond Addressing Ordinance adopted May 15th, 1997, and amended through June 5, 2018, be further amended by adding the underscored language and removing the language in the strikeout text as in Addendum 8. This is clarification of reviewing authority on that. I thought that was the one also that changed the size of the letter.
Last chance.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
this one here, I might have some recommendations for you, or if you wouldn't mind, but not today. But just in how this was worded, because I thought there were places where you started out and saying you had 4 inches up here, then you went down here and you said 4 inches again, and there was kind of a lot of repetition and things that maybe we could work on. But my other main question is, where's the enforcement? I've been here 26 years, and we had this thing then. I was supposed to put a number on, and we did. We have a great number on our mailbox. And I just don't see any change in most of the houses and businesses around here, except for I know the town gives away free numbers, although I think those are now too small because now they need to be 4 inches. But I'd just like to see some enforcement on this thing. I think every year, and really get this thing going and get every house and every business to have these numbers on them.
I think this is for new applications and new stuff. The other ones are grandfathered, so it's not going to change every house in Raymond. If they had a 3-inch number before, they're probably not going to change it to 4 because they don't have to technically.
And is that truly how this is written, that this is for new houses? Because I see all owners of structures shall by the date stipulated display and maintain. It seems like we were at the time when this was first written, calling on the people of the town to take care of their homes and make it so that the fire department can find them.
I asked that question, and it was your grandfathered in when we were discussing it before it got on here. And if you're already there, then you're all set. If it's new, then you need to be in compliance with the 4-inch.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll just say I think that's a shame. I think we ought to be able to step up the encouraging. I mean, we're not in the business of forcing people to do things. It's not worth, we don't have that's code enforcement time and money.
Yeah.
But the more we could encourage this, the better. Thanks.
Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. I'll just say I had brought this up at other meetings before. This is a great Eagle Scout project. There was an Eagle Scout who actually did this in Wyndham, who raised the money, got the numbers, and went, picked a neighborhood or so many neighborhoods for his project and changed all the numbers. So reach out to Troop 800, see if the Eagle Scout needs a project, and they could go in some of the older neighborhoods and change the numbers to the new 4-inch for some people who maybe can't do it for themselves.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road, and as far as enforcement is concerned, after 25 years in appeals of zoning ordinances in the town of Raymond, what I can tell you is most of the times that we get notified of a violation, it was because of a neighbor. So I would say, basically dropping a dime on someone, as the term was called. But the bottom line is, I believe enforcement would be whenever there's a difficulty of a town service to locate an address. There'd be a mechanism to report that and to say it's a violation. So if rescue goes down and they're called into a home, it's a new home and they can't find it, then that would drive some of the enforcement.
Any other questions on things on the warrant? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Moving to the regular select board meeting. Next item, consideration of supplemental assessment. Kurt, you're on.
Good evening, Kurt LaBelle, Assessor's Agent. So I have one supplemental tax I'd like the board to consider. I have a property owner who's enrolled in the tree growth classified land program who wishes to voluntarily withdraw 3 acres of classified land out of his 23-acre total. So I've calculated the penalty and provided it to the taxpayer. It's $1,211.40, and I recommend that the Board of Assessors go ahead and issue that supplemental tax, withdraw the property from tree growth.
You want to read the motion? You got
One question?
Yep.
Kurt, I'm just curious what the valuation of that lot was when you, is this a fine or is that the tax for the lot like it was a building lot?
It's a penalty that's statute defines how we calculate the penalty.
Okay.
It doesn't
Whole thing?
necessarily, what they
From where?
paid in tax and past doesn't play in.
You just can read it.
The penalty in this case, it tends to be a little lower because this property already has 3.5 acres out with a house on it that they pay full freight tax on that already. So when I calculated the penalty, I used a lower rate.
A different prorated?
Yep.
So it's not a building lot, it's more or less, they probably want to make a lawn or something like that?
Yeah, if the whole, it could, I mean, what he's going to do with it when he gets it out, that's up to him. If this property had been wholly enrolled, for instance, there was 25 acres all in tree growth, I would have calculated the penalty on a building lot value, and the penalty would have been
Thank you.
$12,000.
Yeah, I'm just, for future knowledge, you know? Thank you.
I can just read part of that, right? So I'll motion to take these 3.6 acres of unclassified land out of tree growth with a penalty amount of $1,211.40
Just identify the.
for, let's
Just
see.
identify the parcel of the
I'm trying to find it.
Furling Road.
1,211.40.
I can go book and page. I don't see the.
No, go up. Just,
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Located at 34 is it Furlong Road though? Not Furling Road.
Furlong Road.
Huh?
Furlong Road.
Okay. So this one, oh, that's just an email. That's wrong in there, but 34 Furlong Road, tax map 18-18-K.
is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried.
So the warrants for that are coming down the table, and I'll submit those to the tax collector tomorrow, and she'll initiate a tax bill for it.
Three 3.6.
Okay.
Oh, can I steal that?
Okay, next item, Community Resilience Partnership Grant. So, not sure which one you're going to do it. Is it going to be John or Brian? Or are you going to tag team?
John Rand, 20 Dryad Woods Road. Greetings, Select Board. Good to see everybody. It's good that we approved, or at least it passed the warrant, that we can accept funds from other state sources or other sources. Because here's an opportunity that has been around for about 4 years in Maine, Community Resilience Partnership, that is a funded by, I'm going to get Brian to pass out a couple of these things. I don't have enough for everybody, so you guys are going to have to share. This came to us actually during the comp plan last year, and it wasn't something the comp plan was set up to do. Here's another one. Yeah, I can send that. Yeah, there's another one there. But we kind of tabled it for future consideration, and it may well be the last round of grants that are still available for this program. And what you've got in front of you now is some examples of other towns across the state to the tune of 200 or so other towns that have participated in this. Grant funding is limited in this round to $75,000 per town. And the folks from North Star Planning who guided us through the comprehensive plan are prepared to help us apply for this funding and guide us on selecting an appropriate set of actions or funding targets. So it's pretty straightforward. There's a little bit of a timeline. I won't say crunch, but in the next month we need to get a set of priorities together, picked probably from this material that we have you guys have in front of you, but also received at a listening session, I think up to 2 of them, that the North Star folks will moderate and manage. So we need to get a little word out around town for having folks attend that workshop. But the idea is that we target from the range of opportunities there what we think would be most useful for Raymond. And in my own view, I'm looking at Nathan White, and I'm looking at he sat down again, and I'm looking at Bruce, and I'm thinking about public works, culverts, and fire protection, and wildfire protection, and those are 2 of those examples are in the package that you folks have now. So I think what we were asking from the Select Board tonight is first we certainly try to answer questions that you might have or concerns, but we have a sample agreement that's in the package that you have, and it's a resolution that the board would vote on, a resolution to participate.
Is there a time frame of when the funds have to be spent by? Do you know? I'm sure there is, but do you know?
I'm not aware of. I think it might have a 2-year fuse on it, but this application, if it goes in at the end of July, or even actually as late as August, there'd be, I think, a 2-year run to be making progress on it. But I don't know that. That's a good question. I can get.
I mean, I only say that because we have there's a lot of these on here that other towns have used just to upgrade buildings, make them ADU accessible, heat pumps, things like that, more energy efficient.
Yep.
And if we grab that building up the road, it'd be a nice place to upgrade things up there and dump some money of that.
Jordan's
just
Mall.
an idea. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think the listening sessions will be an important piece to get a broad community input on how best to spend this money. There's another version of this grant that we chose not to pursue. The dollars go up by another 100,000 to 175K, but they are regional projects, and you're participating with several other towns. which I saw basically that extra $100,000 would probably go into just communicating and interacting with another town in trying to find grants. So I kind of opted for this version, which keeps it in Raymond, and we can focus on what we need most here.
The last page of this on the energy efficient priority grant awarded, the bigger numbers, 100,000, 200,000. Is that what you're talking about with that one or not? Is that still town?
I said 75 is the highest I go.
Because these are town of Millinocket, Norway, Otisfield, all these guys got 100
Yeah,
to
those
200.
guys went in as a cluster.
So they did?
They got the big dollar amounts that apply for that cap on this
Oh,
one.
6, I got you. So 6 of those got the whole
Got the whole 200 or whatever.
And is that already done?
Are those projects done?
Did they get that? Are these awarded or are these?
These, I believe they are. A number, most of them probably are, because it came out in like 2021.
Yeah.
And it was NOAA funding that the state, that is in the state's accounting system. So the read from North Star is that there would be no risk of these funds going away.
Yep. I think this is why we need it in-house grant person, because some of these are pretty substantial amounts that would be beneficial. A lot of these have rooftop solars of upwards of $100,000 to $200,000, and if we're going to grab that building, that would have been an amazing.
That would be a good project right there in the heart of Raymond.
Can I ask you this question, John? I know that there was a lot of talk on the comprehensive board and plan.
Yeah.
And the question I would have is, instead of having more meetings, is there anything we can just draw out of that plan? Because it's already had the public meetings and put into this. I know we don't want to rush things, but at the same time, I think they had you were on the board plan, on that committee. Wouldn't it be easier just to take those ideas that
From
we
the
can,
comp plan.
directly into this?
I think it would certainly be useful. The comp plan itself would be quite useful, probably in steering us towards the right type of grant that we know from our surveys during the comp plan. Areas of town that need more resilience in terms of washed out culverts or other infrastructure that needs attention. But I think the goal of the workshops will be to have the North Star folks walk us down through the opportunities and get a sense in whoever shows up that night as to what they feel the priority would be. And I would trust we'd also be able to influence it by Brian and I met with the North Star folks a couple months ago now, and so I think we'd certainly both be in attendance. And it does identify the need for a town contact, Joe. And I'm hoping you'd be able to say that shouldn't be a resident like me, but a town employee, and just because they could probably be a lot more responsive than I might be able to do. But I certainly plan on helping to see this through, assuming it's something that the board here tonight would be able to at least take a vote of in favor of pursuing it. I think is what we.
So does North Star charge anything for?
Yeah, that was my
Good question. They have a $10,000 grant that is not included in the up to 75 that we can get. That's already covered in another award to them.
And that's already awarded?
That's awarded, yeah. They have it, they're ready to go.
So I just need to make sure that we don't have to allocate any funds.
To the planners.
So John, it looks like once you kind of enroll in this partnership,
Yep.
you're kind of almost in like a mail-in list of grant opportunities. Is that kind of, and you can kind of choose from there what your direction is?
I think the workshops will, certainly that material will be made available to us, and that stuff you have, some examples are are all good projects
Okay.
for most towns. But I think the key is going to be to make it custom to Raymond is those listening sessions. And we'll need to do a good job getting that word out for those evenings.
Peter?
Yeah.
But don't run away, John.
So I agree with this whole process. I can tell you that in the draft comprehensive plan as it exists now, and if and when it ever gets approved by the town, it has in it both high priorities for culvert maintenance and for wildfire suppression. So all of that is contained, Dennis, in the comprehensive plan, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. Also, it has to be noted that in the vision for the comprehensive plan, resiliency is mentioned.
So essentially, what you're looking for at this point is just for us to tell you to continue on.
Continue on and with the process of getting the public input and getting the application in to the state by, I think, August is the, even as late as September, but
Step one is the resolution.
the resolution is key, and that would need to happen, I think, next month, or is, where are we made? So no later than July, maybe your July meeting. And you've got sample language there for the resolution.
So, I mean, the resolution can be put on the next select board meeting, so that's fine.
That would be
You know,
good.
but I mean, from the standpoint of getting them on board and what, knowing what to do so things can start to get set up, then really, what you want is direction tonight that says continue on.
Continue.
Correct, correct.
Anyone have
Or an
any?
endorsement from us, right?
Yep.
You want to make a motion or just?
Sure.
I make a motion that the town of Raymond endorse and allow the forward movement on this resilient partnership program that has been put in front of us.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Okay.
Excellent. Thank you much. Peter, go.
It occurs to me that the former town manager mentioned at one of our comp meetings that, in fact, she was working with Kate Birch from North Star on a grant. So it might be worthwhile to research into that and see if, in fact, there has been some groundwork that was already done.
Yeah, and Kate's absolutely be with us on this going forward, so we can confirm that with her. Pete. Thank you much.
Thank you. Okay, next item, consideration of business license application for 2 Scoops.
Again, are there samples?
So is Corey here? Oh, okay.
So no samples through Zoom.
I'm here on the Zoom meeting. Can you hear me?
Yep. So why don't you just give us kind of a brief on what you're planning and whatnot?
Just a small ice cream shop, right downtown Raymond.
That's the one that used to be an ice cream shop.
The one that used to be?
Yeah, right next.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yogurt shop or something.
Has
Page 7. No, page 1.
37.
Sorry. Page 1, but it's really 37.
So has the fire department been in to inspect yet?
So yeah, I had him and the food guy in to kind of give me a rundown of everything I needed to do. We're not quite there yet, but we wanted to get this in early, so once we're done, he can just come and check it again,
I have an update from,
if that makes sense.
if you want.
Yes.
Wayne's not able to join us tonight. He did say that
We're not getting it on Zoom.
he's done a preliminary walkthrough and has created a list with Corey of things that need to be done, and Wayne is okay with saying
Conditional.
you can approve it conditionally and he and the applicant will work together
Yep.
to finalize.
Well, seeing as it's a food service, it will be conditioned on both the fire and the state inspection.
Yeah, Stuart was there too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's next.
So I got a list from both of them on everything I need to get done. We're almost there. It's just the
Yeah.
emergency stuff we're putting in right now.
Sam made the motion.
Second.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor? Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Come get ice cream. Have a nice night.
Thank you. Okay, next item, consideration of Deputy Chief Lee O'Connor as Health Officer.
Yep, I'd like to say thank you to Deputy Chief Leo O'Connor. He's decided to come forth and become our town's health officer, and also Chief Tupper, because he will be also the backup for Lee as well. So both of them are completed and getting their health officer certificates, and will be our point of contact for those meetings. So thank you for doing that, Lee.
Make a motion to accept Lee as the primary, Lee O'Connor as the primary local health officer, with the chief as the backup.
Well, yeah, but, I mean,
Just one.
what you're appointing is the health officer.
All right,
Because
all right.
that's what gets reported to the chief.
Change that.
Yeah.
To just Lee O'Connor
Right.
as the local health officer.
Was there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Okay. Next, Nathan, you're on. Discussion of traffic calming signs and the new MDOT recommendation.
All right. So we've been talking for a while about speed radar, the speed feedback signs. Right now, we have one on a trailer. Was looking for pricing on them. I got 4 quotes. They range from $41.25 a piece up to $6,899 a piece per unit. The one we have on the trailer was donated from through DOT on a grant through them. What I'm recommending we do is we spend the summer moving it around town. I'm going to develop a schedule where it's going to be able to give us a little bit better, or a lot better, sampling of where the problem is. And this fall, I think we should make a plan at that point. We've got some stuff that we're doing. We're going to put up some new speed limit signs on Main Street. That seems to be where the biggest problem was from the little short sample that we had last fall. And the signs that are on the town side of Main Street aren't adequate enough. And I think changing that's going to help some. Other than that, I think we just need a little bit more research on this before we go any further. During this process, I had talked to DOT, and they brought up the intersection on North Raymond Road, the 4-way intersection at Ganderbrook and North Raymond Road. They are strongly recommending we change that to a 4-way stop. I don't disagree with that at all. And they are offering up all the engineering, the signs. All we got to do is install them for them. They're going to be solar light lit signs, bigger than what we have over there. He's got a pretty good PowerPoint if you guys want to see it before that all happens. It's a lot of data, probably all the data that we already kind of figure on over there. But I'd like to go forward to that if we could.
And so, from my understanding, the only thing, the only expense we're going to have in that whole thing is restriping afterward, correct?
Yes, that is correct. The only thing that we're going to have to stripe there are the stop bars. We do most of those in town, are in-house. Yeah. And it'll be our labor putting the signs up. You're probably talking about, there's force. It's probably a better part of a day. You're going to have to trim some trees for the solar lighting, for the solar power to the stop signs. And you're going to have maybe 4 per lane. So coming north on North Raymond Road, you're gonna have stop ahead and stop. Same coming the other direction. Same on Ledge Hill and the same on Shaker Woods.
Will they?
We already have.
Will they put out the notice signs for like a month or so before us is change in traffic pattern or something like that?
Yes, yeah, they're gonna supply me with a signboard, electronic signboard. So we'll put all the stuff up, cover it up. The signboard will go up, warning that there's a change coming. And I believe they do I think it's a 2 or 3 day test on it, I guess you'd call it. They activate it all, and then they're gonna close it back down for another week, and then they'll activate it completely. If that makes any sense.
Nope.
Yeah.
It doesn't, but
I think it's a great idea.
So they've got a lot of data. They did it over on Route 11, where 121 and Route 11 come into place. That's the closest one to us that they've done it to recently, and the outcome of that was incredible. They still have accidents, but they're nowhere near as severe because if traffic's going slower, somebody's going slower. But the results from that were incredible. The data that he sent me on that was quite eye-opening. And we have that intersection on North Raymond Road it's not in a high crash zone. It's been like 1.2 accidents a year. We had a couple years we had none, but it's pretty average after that 0. There's 1 a year anyway.
problem is winter time too, because if you're coming down the hill and if you hit ice, it's not even your fault. You're trying to stop, but the other people going the other way aren't stopping because they're not.
Most of them were on clear, dry roads.
Really?
Yeah. The data's it's concerning on people's driving habits.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's straight away where people try to go 100.
I think it's a great idea, and I'm ready to make a motion. I really am. I think it's a great idea.
I do too. Yeah. I second that.
Can I make a comment?
Second the motion he's about to make?
Yeah.
All right, good.
I like
Or
it.
even
So I'd just like to make a comment on that as far as and ask Norm, first of all, when he was pricing these, our feedback, in the range that you gave, what are the capabilities? Can they collect data? Do they have cameras? Do they count the number of cars, the speed? What are the options on that price?
All about the same options as we have. We don't have a camera on ours. When you got into the cameras, they went to 10, 12, 13 grand a piece. I looked for the stuff that we had the same basic data collection. It gives you time, average speed. It gives quite a bit of information. A lot of stuff that you'll never use, but it does traffic count.
Yep. No, respectfully, I would agree with that. A lot of that data you don't need, you'll never use it. I think that the question being that came basically from surveying the community through the comprehensive plan was the fact that there needs to be traffic calming on all of our roads. But short of having more police presence, my sense is that that's not going to happen. Maybe you spoke with him as well. Randy Ilian?
Yes.
Yeah. He's main DOT traffic engineer for District 1, which is what we're.
Correct.
What I asked him specifically was, I had mentioned before that the MDOT does enter into with other communities on group purchasing. So when they're purchasing these signs, they did let a municipality dovetail in to get that pricing. He said, unfortunately, currently there's no master agreement with the manufacturer of dynamic radar speed feedback signs. So he couldn't. He said that right now is not available. It was at one point.
That is correct.
Yeah.
It was at one point. Ours came when we got ours. That was right in that same program, but DOT was giving those out to the towns that put their hand up.
Yeah. And so he did recommend, and it's possibly the four you had, All Traffic Solutions, Coastal Traffic, TAPCO, and Traffic Logic. So those
Correct.
are the vendors that he says the MDOT is using, and that he said would get pretty good pricing and a quality product from them. And I guess what I'd say as far as the the traffic calming strategy in general, it came up through the comprehensive plan, through our surveys with the community, and also it was promoted a little bit more when I'm sure the people in this room remember there was a tragedy on Egypt Road in which 2 of our residents were killed. I think that more than just these traffic calming devices like radar feedback, we're going to have to do more in the future to make these roads safer. And when and if the comprehensive plan is ever approved, you'll read what some of the citizen feedback was when we did our surveys. But that being said, as far as the intersection you're talking about, absolutely that's dangerous. But I would tell you that, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, there's many dangerous intersections and areas. And strategically, my understanding of the science of traffic calming with the signage is that you place them strategically where there's going to be a change in speed. So if you're coming down this road, and there's a radar sign, let's say somewhere around the fire station, saying that the speed has changed from 45 to 35 or 30 because you're entering the school zone, that would strategically be the place where you'd want to place that type of a sign. Or let's say coming down into Main Street in the Village, people that are coming off 302 and doing 50 miles an hour that then come through the Village. That's where strategically at both ends of Main Street, that's where you'd have a sign, the sign's posted to try and alert them to slowing down.
We set them up on Main Street was the one that I saw the highest fluctuation in speed. And when you come off, if you come off from 302 onto Main Street at 50 miles an hour, we're probably going to find out who it is. You're going to collect them up on the sidewalk there. But that's not to say they're not going 50 on that road. We didn't see anything that high. Everything was 35 to 40. And that's a 25 mile an hour zone down there, but the signage is very poor. Is Egypt Road, that was, I believe, was in the 40s. We had a couple of peaks in the 60 at night, but that doesn't have any speed changes. Once you get on there, it's set right at the beginning of the hill there. One of my plans is to go forward, research MPI with DOT on Egypt Road. Some of the problems with Egypt Road is the road itself. It's not a great road. It's not designed to carry the traffic that it has right now. But the problem is, I think it's a class 4 road in DOT's world. So the only improvements you can see on that road is if we get into a partnership with DOT.
And that was a recommendation of the comprehensive plan as well, that we have
Correct.
a master plan with Maine DOT to look at all of the roads in Raymond and see what strategies we can apply.
So DOT owns the maintenance on Route 85, 121, and Egypt Road. We've done 3 of those on 85 and 2 on 121, and the latest one was the Main Street project right in the Village.
Yep.
So it is, we have history with doing them. They're getting a lot more money. Egypt Road, I think last year when I priced it out, was a little over, I think it was coming on to $2 million. So it's going to be involved bonding, and it's going to, we need to do a little more research before we jump into that.
Yep.
But the problem with that is you're going to flatten the road out, straighten it out, widen it out, make it so they can see better, and they're going to go faster.
Yep. No, I agree. The primary requisite is to get people to slow down. That's what you have to do.
So we don't pave them at all.
Yeah, leave it there. Yeah, that would be fun. Do it right after I retire.
Main Street was pretty slow when it was all tore up.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was pretty good. There's other things you can do. Stuff I really not a big fan of. It's a huge maintenance problem for us. Is speed tables. We did a couple down to Tasseltop. Joe's had some trouble with people down there. We had a woman that got run over by a car there. I think it was last summer, the summer before.
2 summers.
We're going to try them up down there. It's going to give us a chance to plow over them and see what they are. DOT's not a big fan of that, so I don't know as though you would see it on the state end of Main Street. And they don't recommend anything over, I think it's 35 mile an hour speed zone you put them in. But this though, you can look at those and we can talk about it later.
Run override over.
Those create another whole bag of problems for you.
If if I may, just to really quickly, Grace Levitt Road. First of all, I'm celebrating loudly in my head about the North Raymond Road intersection because it's incredibly dangerous, and unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, they can't count the number of near misses. I wish, I don't want more accidents there, but there are many near misses. I've experienced them myself. It's just the angles of the roads that are crossing North Raymond Road in addition to the speeding. So yay, that is great to see that that's going to help be improved. I would just ask that not just Main Street was mentioned, you just mentioned Egypt Road again. I know that came up in a number of the conversations. I think we first brought this up actually prior to the October accident and public comment at a select board meeting. And I know that I've heard others mention Egypt Road as a problem area. Despite the data that you did find, I think that still may be something to be monitoring. I definitely would put in a plug for please be monitoring Raymond Hill Road. I don't know how you speed up a hill, but people do. And so we're out there a lot waiting for the bus, and it seems to be nonstop. And can you also put them on 85? Or are you saying that only DOT could put the mobile sign that you've got that you're going to be putting around this summer on 85?
I would have to call Randy, but I believe we were talking about that. I can request that from DOT, and they will take a look at it.
The only reason you may see fewer people speeding there is because they're tailgating me instead of actually being able to speed, unless they then are passing over the double yellow line. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Someone's on Zoom.
Yeah.
Sean.
Do it up.
Hey, Sean McKillop, 84 Main Street. I know this is kind of work in progress, but I just want to thank Nathan because we brought this, kind of with the comprehensive plan and then the budget finance committee, but I really appreciate Nathan looking into this and doing the research on these different things. So just want to thank you for that.
Other discussion on the traffic calming?
I'd like to make the motion to move forward with the Public Works Director's plans on both locations.
Already seconded.
Seconded before it was first. Further discussion? All those in favor?
I will, I'll get hold of them tomorrow, and I'll get a timeline on the North Raymond Road thing. I think it's at all due state speed. I'm not sure how fast that works, but I will let the town manager know, and thank you very much.
Okay, next item.
Actually, I have one on that one. There's I saw quite a few accidents last year, I think 3 or 4 pretty bad ones with people gawking at the sunset or whatnot at Raymond Beach, and people don't turn in the right entrances and exits and did the do not enters. So they hit their brakes and they start back up again. And the speed limit there is for some reason like 50 miles an hour past the beach.
55, I think it is.
55 past the town beach. Not only do we have a beach there, there's kids there, there's all that, there's people looking, there's people going in the wrong way, and a half mile up the street is public safety building. It's just a weird place to have 55 mile an hour all the way up until maybe 200 yards before the light is when it drops down to 35.
So 302 is federal highway.
Yeah.
We tried, the year we put the public safety building in, we tried to get it reduced. We tried again when the beach went in, and they felt that it was a non-movable item.
I got to sign one of the papers.
I mean, I'm just wondering when that was, because I'm sure there's whoever was.
So the last time I called them on it, I think we had a pretty good hit out there. It was probably 4 years ago, and I talked to Randy at that point, and he wasn't interested at all. And I will poke him again.
Is it the same guy you're saying the whole time?
Randy was new. The people before he's new, not new, but he's
newer than the people that said no.
Correct. So let me
let's try that.
See what happens.
The thing that's interesting to me, Nathan, is that it's 55, and then when you get to Casco, it drops down, and then Naples.
Yeah.
And so the only stretch that's 55, unless you're coming back from Bridgeton, and then you have that, what they call the crash every week up there by the place right on the corner there. I can't think of where the Historical Society.
Oh, yeah.
They just drive off the road up there, and there's all kinds of crashes.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
Yeah,
a friend of mine.
Terrible.
son passed away there. That's enough.
And that's 45. Because I know I got stopped for doing 50 there. So, but there's a lot of people passing me before I got stopped. But the point is, it's the only stretch on 302, and it's illogical with buses, as Derek just said, with boats, sidewalks right there. And if there's any way that we can even have someone come in front of the select board, I would like to have a debate with them on why there. And nowhere else.
That one crash that I saw where the Jeep went head over heels and hit somebody else was that same thing. Because the person stopped to go in the do not enter, and then they realized it wasn't, and the person behind just didn't even slow down. It was a complete 55 mile an hour.
I think that was OUI too, if I remember correctly.
It was a lot of stuff, yeah. There's 4 accidents there in the past.
And 2 deaths at the
year.
Wharf Road, back when I was first chief here. Now, I know that's a while back, but still, 2 kids died there. Anyway, I just would love to hear them tell our public why that one stretch seems to be logical to be 55
I have quite a few
miles an hour.
photographs of accidents from last year too, if they need to see visuals on it.
Yeah, they've got a pretty good database on you ought to see the data that he has on just the North Raymond Road. They document everything, and it's scientific, I guess, and that's how they base the peaks on.
Once again, thanks, Nathan, for the work on those 2 locations.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Nathan. The next item, consideration on comprehensive plans, next steps. So I know, Joe, you've been having some discussions with Tom.
Yes. So,
on, and I guess what I'm not sure, he's saying put it on the November ballot, or is he saying that we can't do a special meeting and do it, or?
yeah. Peter, would you?
Tom didn't say to put it on the November ballot. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. To try to bring this comprehensive plan home, we've made the edits. We cleared it with Tom from DACF, that the edits were okay and didn't have to go through the full process. So thank you to Melissa for working on that and making those edits, and she's cleaning up that document right now to make sure that it is what will be voted on. So yeah, my understanding from Tom, he ended up calling me, and then I was trying to figure out what the next steps were to this process. He said that because of municipal legislation body under number 9, it's kind of the definition of what it is. To vote on a growth plan, you have to either be a city council, a town with a charter, or to be put forth on a ballot.
Right.
So those are the 3 options they said pertaining to Raymond.
So I guess I would ask you to talk with him again, and because what he's saying is put it on a ballot, and his natural inclination would be, well, the next ballot is November, but if we call a special town meeting that has a ballot, then it's on a ballot. So so that can accelerate it from our standpoint, because, and then from that date you go back 30 days, and that's when you have to have the public hearing.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's what we had talked about when we got into this, was we'd get that done, then we would look at scheduling a special town meeting, and his statement that it has to be on a ballot. Well, that's fine. You do it as a ballot at that special town meeting, so that that meets the
criteria, legislative
component.
Perfect. I'll follow up with Tom on that process.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. So, I reviewed the correspondence. I think we're still dealing with language here as far as whether, in my generation, when you say you talk to someone, it means I'm talking to someone, versus an electronic communication, which is an email or a text or something like that.
Peter, just to confirm, I did talk with Tom.
Well, yes, and I did too.
Okay.
So I did review the emails that were in the e-bits, and I don't see anything in here. He is, as Ralph is mentioning, he's talking about a ballot. He also sent the definitions. So for anyone in town government that isn't aware, or anybody out there in TV land that isn't aware, the legislative body of this town is the town meeting.
Right.
That's the legislative body. If you are a city council, it's different.
Right.
Right? If you have a mayor and you got a city council and all that stuff, but that's not Raymond. In Raymond, the legislative body is the voter.
Right.
And therefore, Tom sent that reference to Joe to, I guess, educate Joe as to what type of government he has. That's it, Joe. Okay? And therefore, he never said it has to be at the November ballot. When you read ballot, you assumed it means the November ballot. And
The next ballot coming in, yes.
And if I'm sounding a little frustrated, it's because I've spent, others have spent significant time in their life in putting this unit together, this plan, that seems to not be able to get adopted. And whether it's, and a lot of it goes back to process. It's all process. I know that this town government is in turmoil. We've had multiple, let me just give you one example. In the 2.5 years that the Comprehensive Plan Committee is in existence, we've dealt with 3 town managers. Think of that. 3 town managers in 2.5 years. So if I'm sounding a little bit frustrated about the fact that now we're talking about November, to hear whether, understanding the timing is this, after or when, if ever, the town gets to approve this comprehensive plan, then the select board needs to then appoint an implementation committee. And it's really only after that committee has met, got its feet on the ground, and really understands what the comp plan is all about, do we start making changes according to the plan. So delays, and I was being a little facetious, but as far as in the warrant, having that, blank in the warrant is because really of a miscommunication and or a lack of coordination between town government and the people getting a clean copy in front of them. And even now, I'm following an email from this morning where we have a town employee that is still trying to get in touch or get guidance on how to add the edits or changes, however you want to call them, that came from the select board to get into a clean copy so that then that can be posted to the town on the website so that the citizens have the ability to review it. Because what they've been reviewing so far that's posted on the website is not accurate after the select board made changes. Minor changes? I would say yes. I would say some people that came to those meetings, citizens, and said, we'd like to see a priority be sidewalks the length of the Cape Road are going to have a little bit more problem with not seeing that in the plan anymore. But that's not the issue. The issue is this should not be so hard. And a special town meeting, which is fine if you didn't want to put it on the warrant, then you have a special town meeting, you call it. It'll probably be as big as this. And my guess is that most people that I've talked to anyway are going to say, yeah, we're okay with this. And then we'll have a plan. And then we can go forward with trying to implement some of the recommendations that the community wants. And so I'm sorry if I sound frustrated. In looking at this, Joe, I got to tell you, I'm just having trouble. And I asked the state expert on it, and he said, "Well, no, absolutely not. You don't have to do this at the ballot at the November meeting. You can do it." Well, how have you done it in the past? I said, "Well, in the past, we put it on the warrant, and the people in the town voted up or down." And short of that, you know what he told me? He said, "Well, just call a special town meeting."
Ralph,
Yes?
can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. talk about being frustrated is I think if the changes were made, first off, don't come to a select board meeting and ask for us to send it out to all of the department heads in the select board to get changes if you really did not want those changes. Because apparently, as minor as they may be, because Peter keeps mentioning minor, it doesn't matter. Those are changes that are important to 1, 10, 15 people. And as far as it leaving it on the board, that's the original one. But that was the comp committee's job. So I know Joe has been trying to get the right font to put in there, that he has not been able to, that they have to get a different program. So we're not putting it off. We did not put it off because we did not want to put it on the warrant. We did not put it on the warrant because the changes were not made, that the board was told that, Peter, you guys stood up there and told us, you washed your hands of it. So then all of a sudden we're stuck with it. So frustrated is us for not bringing it to the comp committee like we did and not having those changes done by you, not us, because it wasn't our job to do it.
Kayla?
Kayla Gonzalez, 518 Webbs Mills Road. It's hard to follow that one. But I would have to say...
Yes.
She's out of order. She has the podium.
No.
You're out of order.
Yes.
Oh, well.
Chair.
Just calm. It's a Zoom issue here. You get into some delays. So. Continue.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, that I don't believe that is a correct statement. And I think you do the citizens of this town a disservice by not recognizing improper conduct by our elected officials. And that's all I'm going to say tonight.
Shouldn't be going back and forth anymore.
Okay. You know, we can keep beating this thing to death, or we can continue around the pan, which says that you're going to just make sure with him that there's no problem there. Then that special town meeting will get scheduled, and prior to this special town meeting, a public hearing will get held to review it, and then the special town meeting will have the vote.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the select board will adopt it once it's in its final version. That's in the process. You adopt it, select board, and then it goes to the people.
I mean, you know, that's not one of the steps that he had in there, but I mean, I have no problem with that. I mean, because, you know, essentially, once those changes, you know, those changes are there, that's what we agreed to, so that's, you know, I don't see a problem there.
Past practice, sir. It's always been that with the 2004,
I mean, because
the select board adopted the plan. Peter Levitt, Ralph, it's a good plan. You know it's a good plan. I know it's a good plan. Why would you be hesitant about just taking a vote to adopt it? In 2004, the last plan we had, the select board adopted it. And then it didn't go to special town meeting. It went on the town warrant. Right. And there were a bunch of people in the gym, and they just said yay or nay, and we had our comprehensive plan. And I just am at a loss because I'm focusing on process.
The process was, it was not a clean document. That's what the process was. And once the document is clean, then it can move forward. That's why it's not on the, that's why it's not on the warrant.
All I'm trying to establish is, you're right, but the processes should be this one. Once it's a clean document, then the select board adopts it. Right. When the select board adopts it, my understanding is that then all of the state components are in effect.
Well, that's, I mean, that becomes part of an issue, because that, we're getting conflicting things on that is I mean, if someone from the state will say, yes, absolutely, I have no problem with that, but that's not, you know, that's kind of not what we're hearing there. They're saying until it goes to this, until it gets voted on by the governing body, then it's not in effect. I have no problem with those corrections that are, you know, those edits that are in there, with us signing it before that. I have no problem with that. It's just, I can't say, because there's conflicting information coming back from the state as to whether that part of it is true or not. If it is, great. But, the final adoption isn't until it goes to the special town meeting anyway, because that's the governing body that's going to approve it.
All right, we could debate this forever. I'm not going to go and spend a lot of time legally researching it. My understanding was once the state says it's good with us, then and the select board adopts that, which is then going to be the information that will be disseminated to the people for the final vote.
Mm-hmm.
They adopt it. That's what then allows it to be published on the website as a clean document. And I can't imagine, even if you're right and it's not really a legal step that has to take place, I guess the question I'm just asking is why would the select board be hesitant about adopting it?
We're not opposed to it.
There's a lot of animosity in this room, and the select board want the same thing as the town manager, want the same thing as the comp plan. We all want this to go to the people to vote on it to accept it. There's no reason for all the animosity when we all want the same thing.
I guess I would say, Derek, unless it's the fact that it was on the warrant and then it was off the warrant.
Right, because it was not a clean document.
It could not.
That is also passed.
Let him finish.
It was not on there because it was not a clean document. The edits had not been made, so you couldn't have a dirty document on the warrant.
And I guess I'm a little at a loss as to, with all of the IT capabilities that we have in this town, we can't edit. We can't edit.
Well, I can give it to you. You edit it. You edit it and bring it back to us. How's that? You have IT capabilities.
I want an explanation as to why we can't edit.
Let me just ask one question so we can calm this down. How much time does the public need before they vote on the warrant? Is it 30 days?
30 days, because...
And so already at this stage, they can't vote on the warrant. So that already...
Because the warrant has already been mailed.
That's what I thought. That's why I'm asking.
Mailed out.
So at this stage, the only recourse we have is to get it done as quickly as possible, post it on the town web, and then set up, as soon as it's posted, the 30-day notice for the special.
Which everyone's trying to do.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that's what we should do, and I think that's what we're going to move forward with.
Right.
If I'm hearing everything correctly.
All right.
I still like the public debate.
Public comment.
Go ahead, Grace. You go, girl. If you, depending on what you say, I may not even.
I like the compromise of the audience.
She's definitely going to say the same thing I was going to say. Go ahead.
Jennifer Danzig, 38 Pulpit Rock Road. So the warrant's already printed and done and everything else?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us who's running for everything?
Can I?
Sample ballots
I don't.
on the web, on the end.
Huh?
There are sample ballots available on the website.
Oh, okay. I was just curious who's running.
On the main.
Let's keep it moving.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm 100 that you're going to be the party.
Yeah, I can find it.
Grace Levitt, 2 Levitt Road. I just wanted to remind people that, you're at a meeting tonight, but please come to a meeting tomorrow night over at Wyndham High School for the school budget hearing and the vote on the various warrant articles there to move it to the next step. And there's a really good write-up explaining the budget, the increase and the subsidies we get back, et cetera, in the latest edition of the Wyndham Eagle, and it's also online if you don't have the paper copy anymore. But please do come and hear the details of the budget and have a chance to ask questions. And so 6:30, Wyndham High School. What should I add? I'm looking over to my fellow RSU board member. Oh. Oh, yes. A reminder about, yes, because I went through there once. Well, can't really get through it so much.
No.
The traffic,
Oh,
in
God,
order
no.
to get over to Wyndham High School, do time it so that you're allowing plenty of extra time because of the work that's being done now at that intersection.
They're better off to go River Road and go up to the
Yeah, or
that
maybe
way.
go via Vermont or something. I don't know, but seriously, it do allow for that. Thanks for that reminder. Anything else that I should have said in public
'Cause
comment?
if you take 302 up there and go the normal way, you're going to get.
If you go
if
ahead
you take
of
River Road and then go up
Yeah.
by the new school up to the high school, you're there's no traffic there.
Well, it depends on what part of the thing they're working on at the time. I've hit
I think they're
I've hit
past
different
it.
paces.
I think they're up to.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll just allow for, I always allow for enough time because I don't know what I'm going to hit and win them anyway, and better to be early than late for that. So please do attend. And also then support the budget on June 10th when you come to vote. Thank you.
I want to say something else.
Good. Oh, okay.
Jody Carroll, 30 Rockwood Acres. So we'll try to come a little more often. Grace and I talked about that. I've been on the RSU 14 school board for 3 years, and we worked together. We've had a lot of change in our board as well, and that's just part of the work, isn't it? So I wanted to make a couple comments, just a citizen watching the meetings over these last couple of years. As far as the finance committee, I love that your team is engaging on a monthly and sometimes more often than that. Last year felt a little tough, right? Kind of at the end of the year, and obviously those team members evolve over time, and just the work is so important in my view, and the work was being done, but I think meeting throughout the year has just felt easier as a citizen to keep up with it. And I was really encouraged to see that the warrant articles were aligned 100%, and obviously they don't always have to be, but I just want to make that comment. So encourage the finance committee to keep going, and thank you for your work. End of the budget season for us too, so congratulations on that one. I would just add to what Grace said, Director Grace Levitt, just in terms of the budget for RSU 14, not to get into the weeds here with it, but if anyone's listening to this meeting and isn't sure if they should make the time to come out to the vote tomorrow night, the article did talk about a 12.75% increase for the school board budget, which is really difficult to understand in a newspaper article. And so I would just encourage people, if you didn't have time to come out and make a comment or vote on that, is that the largest percent, or it's about half of it, is state subsidy that we're receiving in terms of revenue. And so when you're voting for 6.4% of that 12.75% increase, it's to receive state subsidy that will offset our budget. So that's really important, I think, as a taxpayer, to understand that our increase effectively for your taxes this year will get split between Wyndham and Raymond at a 6.4%. So each town will have their share depending on the mill rate and how it gets put out. So it wasn't easy to understand in the article, and Mr. Howell did a terrific job, but it's only 4 columns, and our budget season can't be summarized in 4 columns, and the school board budget is complex this year. And the other thing I would just say is that we don't have any middle school debt coming online this year. The superintendent negotiated that with the state to defer that for a year, so that's great. Raymond does have a little bit of a circuit breaker, though, that will be incorporated into this year's obligation because we're a minimum receiver. So we do have a balance that will come into the tax dollars this year, but otherwise we're at 6.4%. And I just wanted to say those 2 things. And if you can't come tomorrow, please support the budget in June. And thank you.
Thank you. That was informational.
Other public comment? Selectman comment.
You know, I've seen some heated meetings here. And I have to tell you, passion is a very important thing to me. I like to see involvement. I like to see passion. I made that comment after having a blowout when I was on the budget committee with one of the selectmen. The next day, we're all citizens. We're all neighbors. We're all people who really do care about the community. And maybe the process isn't what I wanted. It's certainly not what many people expect at times. But it is a process, and I think we are improving. And I think the negativity that comes out when it's not considered constructive becomes a problem, I would say, that has to be overcome. And it has to be overcome by finding the good in what we do. And sometimes, you know, it takes 2 minutes of conversation over someone losing their spouse or someone having an injury, and you start to realize just how close we are. And I think that's what we're trying to get into with this, back to the community. We lost it when we lost Founders Day. We've lost it when we had select board meetings that were at 5:30 and over by 6 or quarter after. This is 2 hours, 2.5 hours. But I think this was informational. It's the first time I've heard the detail that you gave. I think when we have a conflict amongst the perception or even our goals, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to hear other people's opinion. We compromised, we're trying to fight a compromise on the bus. And I think listening to people say you didn't listen, and we're trying to find a way to work around it, is an example of something that just took an extra 15 minutes of someone saying, why not this? And asking why the warrant couldn't be changed. I didn't know we couldn't change the warrant, so I asked. I asked more questions probably than most people would like, but it's the only way to be educated for tomorrow, and the next change, and the next town manager, and the next select board. So please bear with us while we transition with 3 town managers and 3 or 4 department heads. We're on the move now, and hopefully we can have a brighter day. And thanks for coming tonight. And
Well
listening.
said.
Hey, great. Thank you.
Well said.
Other selectmen comment? Town manager report.
Thank you, Dennis. That was good. I'd like to just first thank the staff of Raymond and all the department heads and employees jumping in as interim. It's been really great experience for me to learn everyone's department and really have them approach me with information and problem solving. I feel like we've done a lot in just these last, I think, 7 weeks. So I'd like to just first of all thank the staff. They've been great to work with. For public safety, a few updates. We went through lieutenant interviews. That was really great to meet some of the staff. They have a great motivated staff at public safety. So it was really great to sit on those interviews. Also was invited to the gala. It was very moving to see the work that they've done this year, and kind of the teamwork it takes to deal with some of those intense situations that we all can see in the news but aren't on the ground. So it was really moving to see that, and my wife and I felt really welcome. So it was very great experience for us. I also like to, for public safety, they had a new grant that is going to regionalize EMT and medic. So I love Bruce to just speak on that real quick.
Yes, through EMS revitalization fundings from the state of Maine, which we were guaranteed a set payment on, and we've got 2 of them coming. I don't know what the second will be. It'll probably be the same or more. So our $15,000 that we've been awarded at this point in time, we got together with the towns of Casco, Gray, and Wyndham, and it put together a regional fly car for paramedics. It'll be a 45-week study, basically, to gather data and see how the program works, and then make further and future recommendations to the groups, our own towns, or an even bigger entity such as the county, as to how to possibly handle this in the future. I think it's going to be a great program, and only good is probably going to come out of it, and it will help us lead to that future planning that we need to help boost EMS, emergency medical services. As you know, paramedics are the entity that's so hard to come by now. We can provide EMTs all day long, but paramedics are a specialty and rarity, actually, these days. So we're looking forward to seeing how this grant works out. It will utilize a car that's a retired car from Wyndham Fire, and we'll just be on the hook, I guess, for a proportion of the fuel and or maintenance of that vehicle, and the rest of it's grant funding. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. A few Parks and Rec updates. We have our Tasseltop Park Snack Shack and bathrooms project that is going to be wrapping up here next week. That's been a 4-year process, and I like to thank Nathan. He's been the project lead on that with my assistants, and it's been really great to kind of see that come to fruition with a permanent bathroom structure at Tasseltop instead of porta potties and other type of trailers that we have to fix and keep up with. So that's this Friday, and I'd love to have anyone come to at noon and see the building and see what the hard work has paid off.
Is it going to be open for hot dogs?
No hot dogs yet. No. We also have our tennis court and pickleball courts that are we're expecting to be done in July. It'd be a great addition to recreation and leisure activities and some other programs out of Sherry Gagnon Memorial Park. So that's on schedule for July completion. You can also see that Public Works has started the cleanup on the roads and beautification committee, and Don's planting flowers along through it too, and getting all those things, spruced up here. So it's great to see them in action, and I mean, summer's is coming pretty quick, so hang on. Some dates for, May 19th will be a special meeting. June 17th will be the select board meeting. It's going to be pushed out a week because of election, and our staff will be there, and I think that'll be a good date to do that. And then July 8th will be our other select board meeting scheduled. And then we have our election schedule as well, posted. I don't think I need to read that. It should be on our website. So that is it. Do you have anything, Mel? Oh, yes, sorry, Mel. Go ahead.
So just an overview of the important dates coming up related to the election. Absentee ballot request for in-person started today technically, but because the school budget isn't completely finalized yet, we can't accept ballots back because the ballot for the school budget refers to the meeting that's happening tomorrow. So people can request ballots, people can come and pick up ballots today. We're closed now, and tomorrow, but we cannot accept them back until after the meeting tomorrow night, which is the next item that's on here, the budget vote at Wyndham High School Auditorium, 6:30 tomorrow night. So once that meeting is complete and the budget is finalized at that level, then we can do full force absentee voting on site up at the town office during regular business hours through June 5th. June 5th is the last day that you can request and take out absentee ballots. May 31st, as you said earlier, I'm going to repeat it 100 times. Public information meeting on the warrant articles to be held at Jordan Small School Gym starting at 10 a.m. That is a Saturday meeting. It will be similar to what we just did tonight, question and answer on a larger scale. And then Tuesday, June 10th will be election day, right at the Jordan Small School Gym. Again, polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. And if you have any other questions, come and ask us at the town hall.
Thank you, Mel.
Make a motion to adjourn.
No.
Oh, we still have one more?
Oh, yeah.
No, we have an executive session.
Oh, that's right. I don't know why.
So the next item is going to be an executive session. So everyone's going to have to leave, but that's the last item on the agenda anyway. So. Move to come out of executive.
Motion to come out of executive session.
All those in favor? Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
He wants to do that one.
Second.
What I like.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned.